that, as I welcome you, that this is a tribute from his students, a man who has taught us so much, and who has, above all, if you ask any of his students today, they will tell you that how a man can be so much, but can totally minimize himself. This is just an expression of what we call humility in power. He has everything, but you'll never see that in him. We go to his house, we harass the man, we bring some of those of us who drink wine, they go ravage his cellar, and that's the man. You know, we engage him in endless debates about, you know, the future of this country. So this is a very token gesture of saying, we'll give this back to you. And of course, we brought one of his most irreverent students, as I hope his lecture will prove that very much. But before then, let me call my very good friend, who is really the MC of the event, Ohi Alegbe. Ohi, are you here? You are actually.
Learning of my students too. But before we begin the process of engaging this hour, may I invite also on to be upstanding for the national anthem. Thank you all very much. We may resume our seats. I'm inviting onto this end of the hall. Please let's give the applause going. He may not have put his pen to paper on his experience as a commander of men and materials, but those who have written about how far the Nigerian journey has been have never failed to acknowledge his immense and immeasurable contributions. Please let's put our hands together once more. Friends of AHA, now I have a little challenge. Yesterday, when I got a bit of the brief on this event, and I saw the word celebrator, I asked whether that was what we should do, because all before now I've been used to celebrant, you know. But I know that a nation where we've enjoyed the privilege of the penmanship of Professor Ropo Sekoni has been using the word celebrator. So I realized that, well, it also rhymes very well with professor. So whereas celebrant is like to rhyme with deviant or something. So let's for the purpose of this morning, stick to celebrator. Celebrator. I don't know who is overruling me. When we're in a democracy, maybe we'll put it to vote later. We have His Excellency the Governor of Ekiti State, my own brother here as well. So we'll debate these things. And the Senator said that there's a linguist, that's what I'm saying, you know. So the well, the great mind that we are here to celebrate, I think we can take that middle course. Is also here as well. I'm stepping ahead because the representative of His Excellency invites the great mind that we're here to celebrate, who was born in Ondo on August 10, 1943, to Chief Simeon Sekoni and Mrs. Marian Sekoni. Well, I'm told that he was considered an ambiguous of sorts after 3 children, including a set of twins that did not not survive, and was given quite a rich name, which we have learned over the years to just shorten to Ropo. Auntie Banker said that we should just leave the other appellations and Uriki names. He attended All Saints Primary School and St. Patrick's Primary School in Ondo until 1957, after which he enrolled in Ondo Boys High School, where he was in his final year secretary of the Literary and Debating Society and the Dramatic Society. After completing his studies at the Ondo Boys High School, he worked briefly at the Federal Office of Statistics, the Federal Ministry of Works, Cable and Wireless, Nigeria External Telecommunications in Lagos for a few years before traveling to the United States of America during the Civil War years to study at Bowie State University, where he obtained a BA magna cum laude in English in 1971. He later obtained an MA and a PhD in Anglophone African Literature at the University of Wisconsin on Western Nigeria's postgraduate scholarship. The great mind that we are here to celebrate started his teaching career at the University of Wisconsin's Department of African American Studies in 1976. He returned to Nigeria to teach in the English department of the University of Ibadan, from where he offered to serve as foundation faculty at the University of Ilorin. He later moved to the University of Ife, also known as the Obafemi Awolowo University, in the Department of Literature in English, from where he relocated to the Lincoln University of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania as Professor of English in the Department of English and Mass Communication in 1990. Activism had always been a part of Professor Sekoni's preoccupations. At the University of Ilorin and at the Obafemi Awolowo University, Sekoni participated actively in the Academic Staff Union of Universities, ASU, serving at different times as Secretary of ASU at the University of Ilorin and as acting president at Obafemi Awolowo University. Before retiring at Lincoln in 2009, Professor Sekoni had served as the university's Director of African Studies Center, the Center for Comparative Study of the Humanities, and the Center for the Study of Critical Languages and Cultures. At Ife, Professor Sekoni served as editor of Ife Horizon, a monthly publication of ASU, and at Lincoln University, he served as the editor of Citations, a publication of the Association of American University Professors, was also editor of the Journal of Nigerian Folklore between 1989 and 1991. I'll jump to his activist years. As an intellectual activist during the pro-democracy struggle in Nigeria between 1993 and 1999, Sekoni served as Washington coordinator of NALICON, the National Liberation Council of Nigeria, while working actively with NADECO abroad in the United States. I spread the diaspora on the issue of restoration of Chief M.K. Abiola's mandate and of federalism in Nigeria. His academic work on multiculturalism took him to 13 of the 27 countries practicing federal system of governance. He also served as editor of Autonomy Alert in Washington and as co-producer of Ijinle Ogunmodua, a Yoruba pro-democracy radio based in Washington, D.C. during the anti-military struggle. In retirement, although he's not tired at all, he has served as member of the Governing Council of Adekunle Ajasin University, member of Galaxy Television Board, and is on the editorial board of The Nation, and the chairman of the board of directors of the Wole Soyinka Center for Investigative Journalism. He maintains a weekly column in The Nation. He's happily married with children. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome the great mind that we are here to celebrate, Professor Ropo, and the beautiful, wonderful, most supportive wife, Auntie Banker. Thank you, and thank you very much. Most distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, he should have been here with us, but I'm sure the representative of special, some of us putting this together, so Mr. Dele Alake is coming. Could you find out whether he has earned a new title now? Whether it's Otumba or it's simply Mr. Thank you very much. I am also aware that Professor Dikwo Adamulekun and Mrs. Jumaka Adamulekun are here as well. Dr. Palapa PLA is here as well. There are quite a number of friends of
Dr. Karl Popper and Your Excellency Ambassador Festour. The Professor Ropo Sekoni and my sister, Mrs. Bani, in this country. He had, in the heat of battle some years back, asked me a favor, and having vacillated for a very long time, I asked him to do the job, and I will append my signature to it. Such was the respect and trust his friends had in him that I had no hesitation whatsoever going along with whatever he wrote. If Ropo, Shegun, Kayode sitting here, Kongi, BT, and all those say it is fallen short, so who am I to have any doubts? Again, I'm sure he must have exclaimed, he must, for some 2 months ago, when he sent me a mail informing me of this assignment, I'm sure he got no reply. So he must have said again, this man again. Believe me, I'm a computer illiterate. Only recently did I discover that the reply I gave him never left my tablet. So, Follow and whoever your accomplices are, you have my unreserved apology and my gratitude for still finding me worthy to chair an occasion for a great man. I was told yesterday that Ndubus Kanu will be here and will be sitting on the high table with me. He's a retired admiral and a responsible pro-democracy fighter. But only a few months back, I decided to run out of his orbit because it was becoming impossible for me to live on my pension. I'm sure somebody is going to convince him here that his unitary Nigeria is a non-starter. His story is another time, but I'm delighted that I hear that he's on his way here, and I won't be sitting by him. As you know, we are gathered here for a number of reasons. First, the students, most of them now scholars, intellectuals, businessmen of repute, movers and shakers of many societies around the world who passed through memorable times in various universities and institutions, found it fit to gather and do honor to one of theirs to mark the 70th birthday. The teacher is Professor Ropo Sekoni, and the Olokoyeku, where just say, is Banket Sekoni. Unlike you, I did not have the fortune of passing through Ife. As we all know, that's citadel of learning and culture. But I lived close by, and by the grace of so many friends, I was able to meet many of the inhabitants who had a habit of vanishing after a few years. was not different for Professor Ropo Sekoni. After a few memorable years of barbecue, squash, tennis, swimming, and furious discussions and arguments, he left. Years later, after I was stayed my welcome in England, it was, Egbon, Washington should be your next stop. And I asked why? Because you must go and join Ropo and Shegun Badigesin to consolidate the Egbe of Yoruba. That is our next weapon in this war. That was vintage beating, that we call it British political. I belong to Nadeko. Having been branded a Yoruba independentist and a Confederate by some of my friends, will I not be proving them right? Ropo, I knew. But this delegation, I said, don't worry, you will enjoy working with them. End of conversation. His assessment was right on the money. Professor, I want to thank you and Banke for the indulgence you granted me and most of us to use freely your prodigious intellectual property, and for the generosity of thoughts and deed from your family to mine over that period until now. My wife, children, and close relations, and a lot of my friends are grateful for your friendship. After all, Yetunde may never remember how she settled down my daughter Ayo into the difficult life of Manhattan, New York. Having been brought up in the conservative atmosphere of London, she could not have done better for her blood sister. Once the bush in Adego became sharp, it could have been solely a Yoruba affair, if not for people like Air Commodore Dan Suleiman, Papa Anthony Romosile Nahuru, Governor John Oyekun, Pastor Obadan, Admiral Dubusikani, Dr. Parauji, Ralph Wechi, Dr. Moyin, C.C. Joe, Dr. Nwako, who stayed the course with us. It was you and Dr. Badigesin who prevailed on us to patiently endure the rigors of keeping the strong Nigeria. Let me rudely tell you one of the observations I have about you. When you, Professor, during hard times, which was very, very often, start to look 3 1/4 straight, seemingly blank, with your lips pursed, I just reminded myself of your entreaty. That was you. Some very profound thoughts will come out and solutions will be found. Please pardon me, I'm not such a student of languages to translate that language into any other language. The second reason we're here is a lecture, the sector of which, the subject of which cannot be more apt, complementary, and a befitting tribute to the work, thoughts, and times of Professor Ropo Sekoni. How will I know that it will be so privileged that the first time I will meet with Dr. Babafemi Folorunsho will be to listen to a lecture by him on a theme that he has lived and worked with over many decades. I'm sure we're in for a treat. I personally feel lucky and grateful. The third is a matter of a book presentation, Federation and Yoruba Character, Essays on Democracy of Nationalities in Nigeria, written by the celebrants of Ropo Sekoni. It is 120-page dynamite. It is the work of a historian, philosopher, a chronicler, political and cultural analyst, written simply with courage and brutal clarity. I am sure the reviewer will do justice to it. Let me just warn that we need not take another wrong turn at these new crossroads that we have reached. If we heed the warnings in the book, we just might take the right road. Finally, I highly want to launch an institution that will busy itself with applied research on regional issues pertaining to social and cultural democracy, to be named Yoruba Institute and an innovative initiative. I have no doubt as to the efficacy of this new initiative. But Professor, I'm more than convinced that you have paid your dues and you deserve a retirement to enjoy yourself. However, two compelling issues. Yoruba say, Tinaku ba ton laso, Ejoli, Tole Tono, again, I do. Then, second issue, if you are saddled with a wife called Banke, despite her ordeal after her shop office in Maryland was turned into what our NSO, this National Security Organization in Nigeria here, reported as a Nadeku Nalikon conspiratorial den. Several close chiefs in Cote d'Ivoire still indulge in arrest. Did you hear or read what those characters have put on out today? If your spouse is preoccupied with finding solutions to safety in a vehicle containing 150 million souls, with some 500 or so drivers and conductors in stupor, will you be allowed to sleep in peace? Pardon me, is there a more charitable way to characterize what is going on now in Abuja? I wish the Institute well, and may it contribute to the early awakening of our people to the beauty and inevitability of proper federalism for our country to hold and prosper. Professor, congratulations. You have earned the right at 17, and I want Kola to remember this, that you've now earned the right to choose what you want to remember and what you want to remember. Please, let us enjoy this promising, action-packed and intellectual afternoon. Happy birthday, Professor.
But before then, there is this testimony and tribute from Dr. Abiose Michael Porter, who is a professor of English and department head at Drexel University in Philadelphia. And he writes this because he's unable to be here. Person who sees himself as a child of the Yoruba diaspora, being a Saro.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is a great pleasure to be part of this event to celebrate one of the academics who made the University of Ife, at least for my generation of undergraduates and postgraduates, an exciting place to study. After the bit that you have all heard about ours, I think it would be right if I start with the poetry of his name. And I want to say I'm about the only one among his several students who could have such an effrontery to do so. But this is fitting because, lest we forget, his academic discipline is literature, that incomparable refractor of human encounters and definitions. RSC's name, as you've all heard, is Ropo Sekoni. And the Oriki is very simple. The simplest form of it is about Jeteni Ibaro Jetomania. Baba Funilo, Baba Funilasho, Baba Talode Funilomo, Sekoni. And that is more or less the real theme of the real idea of my lecture. It is not about anger, it is not the debate about the autonomy and creative capacities of cultural producers and their audiences, which are the core issues of cultural aesthetics, is rather premature in the Nigerian context. Cultural aesthetic discussions can only be meaningful where the institutional process for its promotion is firmly established as part of a program of citizenship rights. One of our difficulties in Nigeria at the moment is that that process exists only in the bridge. However, by cultural democracy, I mean a set of political arguments addressing inequalities and the continued undermining of citizenship in Nigeria. This includes challenging the current weaknesses or lack of democratic frameworks and the instruments for achieving social justice. The goal of cultural democracy then is to promote egalitarianism, by which I mean an equal society in which the good life, about which I hope to speak presently, thrives and is within the reach of every citizen. The creation of such a society requires both allocation and redistribution of resources, and in our own context, a new and different institutional arrangement. Professor Sekoni is one of those scholars who repeatedly brought diverse empirical observations and methodologies to the teaching of literature, and in effect, contribute to the shaping of the radical vision of society that came to underpin the study of that particular subject in that still great university of ours, that's Obafemi Awolowo University. One can therefore say in retrospect that much of the energy of that radical scholarship was about creating the good life, both as a way of thinking and as worthy pursuit by all and sundry, but particularly by those of us who had that privilege of university education in a country such as ours. The good life is a theme that has occupied philosophers from the ancient to the present. It also continues to dominate a range of subjects in modern humanities and social sciences, either in the critique of the social and economic arrangements of most societies since 1945, or as recognition of the need for new economic models to redress the rapaciousness of consumer capitalism. The latter is especially relevant in view of the unfolding tragic consequences for humanity of the phenomenon of climate change and the ensuing environmental disasters. Indeed, environmental issues should be of concern to everyone in a country such as ours, given the dire conditions in the oil-producing states in the south and desertification in the north. So what is good life? The idea itself comes from classical philosophy and means simply a life that is worth living, which is also a life that is satisfying. Through social, political, and legal philosophy, we learn that for the good life to be possible, it must follow on the recognition of the greatest good. As it is, the greatest good then becomes the benchmark for acting, and any act which enables the realization of the greatest good is thus the right act. Any behavior which may be considered a deterrent to the realization of the greatest good is not only wrong, but should be regarded as an immoral act. There are a number of inferences to be drawn from this definition. One is that the acceptance of public good is an actual practice of the good life, and that one cannot exist without the other. A second inference is that the good life is secular. That is to say, it is not bound nor can be subjected to the rule or governing principles of religion, any religion. The third is that the good life is not about individual satisfaction or contentment, but rather the combination of the existence of all citizens. Within that existence, citizens regard and relate to one another in equal terms and proceed to organize the institutions that regulate their relationship within and between themselves and between them and the external world. The fourth and the final inference is that no individual can claim to have had a good life when his or her life fulfillment has no relation to the common good. That last inference may, of course, qualify as something to be decided on an individual ethical basis. Nonetheless, we cannot disregard the connection between the individual and society in the production of both good life and the public good. Good life, then, is the child of public good. From a well-developed sense of public good comes good life. One cannot stress this point too much. At this juncture, I would like to add to some of the things that have been said earlier in favor of our distinguished celebrator. He should indeed count himself lucky, more so that as a radical scholar, he has not had to suffer the fate of Socrates. And those who know philosophy know what happened to Socrates. He was given the hemlock to drink because he was corrupting young people by teaching them. He teaches us to drink wine. As a citizen, he has joined in many good causes. As you all heard from some of the things said about him earlier, not least by our distinguished chairman, he has been a successful and proud family man. And on that I have it true to say. On all counts, RS has done his best to achieve a good life. But what percentage of RS's countrymen and women born in the last 50 years and who have not stepped outside the country at all through their lives will be able to make this clear? The life expectancy in our country is now put variously at between 48 and 52, which is between 17 and 13 years shorter than the official retirement age. Life expectancy is not measured by the availability, let alone sophistication of medical facilities, though both may count towards the quality of general and specific care in a critical medical situation, and thus chances of medical survival. Life expectancy is measured as the roundedness of life as may be achieved through the pursuit of the common good. As an example, a newborn who is underweight and receives no correctional care in the first few days, not weeks, of life is already sentenced to a life of poor health, stunted growth, and possible early death. However, the question goes beyond the child's poor weight. It directly concerns the quality of the surrounding in which he or she had been conceived, and especially the form of public health education available to the hapless parents. Because the available data are unreliable, the rates of infant mortality in Nigeria remain practically unknown. This, of course, is in addition to the variations between the different parts of the country. I have heard the argument, misplaced and nauseating as it is, that infant mortality in Nigeria is largely a northern problem. I know too well, from my own experience and family connections, that it is equally happening in the presumed El Dorado, that is the Southwest, let alone the entire South. The simple fact is that given the advances in public health arrangements over the past 30 years, infant mortality and maternal death is a shame to us all, whenever and wherever it happens in our country. In education, Nigeria continues to have low enrollment and completion rates in both primary and secondary education relative to countries such as Ghana, South Africa, and the Republic of Korea. Most worryingly, in terms of actual investment and reward in education, the child in the public school system in Kenya, Botswana, South Africa, Namibia, Ghana, etc. has a return on investment benefit of between 75 and 85% to every dollar spent, compared to the Nigeria child, whose benefit stands at less than 25%. In all the indicators of human development, Nigeria's overall scores today are identical to those recorded in 1980. It is in conditions such as those often captured in statistical data that we see how democratic politics, without a priori commitment to public good, is meaningless. It was about 3 months ago that the federal government of Nigeria declared a state of emergency in the northeastern states of Adamawa, Yobe, and Borno. In spite of the military enforcement of the emergency to date and the subsequent proscription of Boko Haram, there is no guarantee that as I speak, those Nigerians who form themselves into Boko Haram are not plotting to kill you and me. This may sound morbid, but the evidence of indiscriminate and heartless killings by the alleged movement speaks for itself. As the British Guardian newspaper pointed out sometime this year, Boko Haram has made little secret of the fact that it regards itself not only at war with the Nigerian state and its security forces, but its people too. It has bombed churches, mosques, carried out assassinations, kidnapping, and mass assault. On a single day in January last year, it killed 185 people across Kano. As the years have gone by, the ferocity, ambition, and scale of its attack have increased. And only a few days ago, about 30 people were again killed by Boko Haram in Borno State. As a scholar with interest in social and cultural theories, I have very little pleasure in defending the current Nigerian constitution as a progressive document for nation building. That is because of its several inadequacies and defects as a federal constitution. It rewards rather than repudiates backward thinking. However, these defects should not be confused with an attack that has all the signs of locking fascism. As a Nigerian who is all too aware of the cultural mix that is our country, my view of the Boko Haram insurgency is that it is a premeditated attack against the Constitution of Nigeria, which is a grave issue. In spite of its many imperfections, the Constitution remains the document on which the existence of the Nigerian Federation and the Nigerian state is based. In other words, it is the source of Nigeria's sovereignty. What is intriguing and therefore makes the Boko Haram issue relevant to my discussion of good life is how the sex insurgency has been promoted in some public discourse as an alternative model of struggle for egalitarian principles in Nigeria. A German scholar, Theodor Adorno, points out somewhere that when God-fearing monotheists insist on the protection of their rights to practice their religion and to propagate it. Therefore, when politicians and members of what the famous American sociologist C. Wright Mills called the power elite say that our country needs to be transformed, the question I ask as a Nigerian is how? Based on the reflections of other writers, I have pointed out that the NGOs and the currently fashionable discussions of development create a sense of a perpetual present which strengthens weak ideas. One of these ideas, for example, is the concept of the failed state, that is frequently attached to Nigeria. As a concept, it is ahistorical, not least because it sets off misleading discussion in international relations. Even if most Nigerians subscribe to the phrase and regularly use it, it is doubtful that they are referring to the same thing as the development jet-setters and NGOs. At best, Nigerians use the phrase failed state as an expression of indignation for the sort of life they have to live within their own country, and at worst, their complete disempowerment as citizens. The French sociologist Pierre Bourdieu had the good sense to distinguish between the right hand and the left hand of the state. This describes how the core functions of the state are delivered between the various arms. We could say that the right hand of the state is devoted to preserving the existing order. The left